Building a company with the potential to dominate the global market is a complex and hard thing to do. Top entrepreneurs who have built dominating products, raised millions of venture capital, and got millions of users will give you insider tips and tricks how they have succeeded and where they have failed. You will learn from investors, founders, and industry experts as well.
Perfect. Yeah, a very warm welcome from Vienna, again from the Brutkasten stage. The Brutkasten is the leading platform for startups and innovation here in Austria. And I'm Martin Pacher, and I have now the honor to moderate the Founders Talks at the third day of the Podim conference. And we're going to talk with three incredible founders, and they will share their story with us. And they are not just founders; they are also investors. And we're gonna ask them how it is to change from a founder's perspective to an investor's perspective. I want to introduce right now Florian Gschwandtner. Florian Gschwandtner is co-founder and chief officer at Tractive, which is the world's leading company for GPS tracking dogs and cats. But more famous, Florian, is you are more famous for founding Runtastic in 2009, and it turned out to be the world's #1 health and fitness app. And now you are also investor. Hello, Florian.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here and happy to tell you a little bit more about my story.
Perfect. Next is Zoe Peden. She created the app called My Choice Bet. This app helped to develop language and communication for over 100,000 children in the UK. And Zoe, you are not just a founder, you are also an investor at Amanda Impact Venture. Hello, Zoe.
Hi everyone from a sunny London. Looking forward to speaking to you all.
Perfect. And last but not least, Gyula Fehér, he's from Hungary, and he founded Ustream. And Ustream was acquired by IBM, and you also switched the side from an investor, from a founder to an investor. So, hello.
That is correct. Hello, everyone. Welcome from Budapest.
Perfect. I want to start with Florian. Many people know your story from Runtastic, but maybe you can give us some insights how you scaled up your business and especially why you became an investor in the end.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to make it quick. So back then, we also started in a crisis, 2008, when we started thinking about Runtastic. We founded the company actually in 2009. So I think that's the first most important part, because we are living in these difficult or weird times, but there's always a good time to start a company, in my opinion. As we have started Runtastic, we searched for some, let's say, angel money, but back then in Austria, there was almost no business angel scene, and everybody knew why it's not working. It's a little bit our Austrian-German mentality. Everybody knows if you have a solution, everybody knows what's the problem. So what did we do? We did some other work, and we did apps for other companies. We took that money and to put it into Runtastic. So we got our first employees, and after 18 months, we became cash flow positive. One of the most important things was that we started with a business model from very early on. And afterwards, you know, the iPhone came up and smartphones became quite popular. So we were in this really right timing, and we tried to make a lot of fitness apps, and we came to a point where we had organic about 150,000 downloads a day, and everything worked out pretty well. We grew the company from 0 to 250 people within this 8-9 years. 2015 we sold a stake. So 2013 we sold a stake to Axel Springer to take some chips off the table, and 2015 we did a bigger exit to Adidas for 220 million euros. And already at this stage, I co-founded the company where I'm working on now, Tractive, as you mentioned. And because I knew a big learning was focus. You can't do two companies at the same time. And also 2015, I started my career as an investor. But at this time, I think I have about 25 startup investments. And I like this job, but I also like the other job where I'm allowed to work really on some operative task. And yeah, that's a little bit my story so far.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing your story. I want to hand over to Zoe. Maybe you can also share your story and give us like an answer to the question why you became an investor.
Yeah, sure. So a similar timing, actually. So 2009, I was looking around at what I wanted to do. I'd been working in corporate for nearly 10 years by then, and playing with the iPhone. I was working at a charity at the time, a learning disability charity. They had a language program of sign language and symbols, but it was all in books and VHS videos. And then in 2010, Steve Jobs launched the iPad. And I saw the size of the screen and how interactive that could be, and the potential to digitize this language program that was really effective, had all the clinical studies. So I did that with the permission from the charity. And I bootstrapped too. I used consultancy money, me and my co-founder, to bootstrap us through the next 2 years until we got some grant money and some angel investment. And then as we grew the business, using all my connections from that charity, built a network of trainers, and we were able to get out to tens of thousands of parents and schools all across the UK. And I took money from Ananda Impact Ventures as well. It was one of the very first impact investments in the UK in tech. And that was the start of our relationship. And then as the company grew and I decided to move on, they asked me to join them. And then I flipped to the other side. So it's been a gradual thing for me based on a very, I guess, special relationship with my investors.
Flipping to the other side, Gyula, you also did it. Maybe you can share your story and also give us some insights on selling your business, Ustream, to IBM. You have to turn on the mic, please.
Sorry, rookie mistake.
Perfect. We hear you clearly.
So as you could not hear what I was saying, I actually did a live video streaming service called Ustream, which makes my mute issue all the more embarrassing. We launched it in 2007, which seems like it was forever ago. We were able to launch it at a very good time when, you know, bandwidth and smartphones and all the requisites were just becoming available for consumers and companies to use it. We survived the 2008 crisis and financial crunch, luckily, and came out stronger. And we did raise a Series A from a typical Silicon Valley venture firm, and then raised the Series B from SoftBank. This was well before Vision Fund, luckily. And yes, we ended up pivoting along the way from B2C to B2B, and this was key in how we ended up, you know, being approached mostly by big enterprise companies who were looking to supplement their offerings portfolio with video streaming, primarily targeted for corporate customers. And this is how we ended up getting acquired by one of them, which was IBM. This was in 2016. I stayed on for 3 years as part of IBM Watson, basically running the same team. And I also got another team in the United States. And then I felt I still wasn't ready for a corporate job in my life. And I think I never will be. And I wanted to do, you know, something new, not just another startup. And the thing about this region is that there's still a scarcity of venture firms who are being run by people who were founders themselves. So I felt that there is still room in the venture market where I can add some extra value and contribute.
Contribution is a good point. Also, Florian, what do you contribute as an investor? Also, especially with your background as a founder, so you are in a special position.
Yeah, I think we are all, my colleagues here and I, being in this situation that we were founders and we are founders. You can't take that away, and that's a big difference, I would say. So we're always talking about this kind of a smart money, and I really see a difference whether there's just money on the table, or there's money and some experience on the table. So it depends, of course, in which stage you start to invest. We are doing, or I'm doing, a lot of really early stage investments. And I would say very often here we can, or I can accelerate the business a little bit. And other than that, I think it's important to understand what should the founders do and what shouldn't they do to keep the focus on the right spot. And what we're also doing, and I'm saying we because I'm doing a lot of co-investments with my former co-founders, and we're having an own investment company there, that we're also trying to bring together all the startups, because it's very similar problems or challenges all the time. How you are handling this? How are you doing B2B sales? How are you scaling a B2C product? Performance marketing. So it's very, very the same topics. And especially when we're getting to a point where we're raising money, talking to a VC, I think then it's important that you have either a structured process or you have somebody on board who has done that already. So, and what is also important for me, I'm not supporting everybody, because I always want to have the feeling I like the founder team, but I also want to have the feeling that I can contribute with something I have learned, with something I have done. And sometimes I think 1 + 1 should equal 3, and then I'm doing right. So that's actually my approach, how I'm handling that. And what I also figured out, sometimes it's more work than you would expect at the beginning, but that's part of the game.
So you have also an active part as an investor for your startups then?
Yes, I would call it, more like this, being on each board meeting, each quarter, but also helping out in special situations. And there's always something special going on with 25 plus startups, that's for sure, especially in these times now. But nonetheless, but that's also what we just heard before. I'm also not a corporate guy. I did very, very similar at Adidas. I was there for 3.5 years. I'm not a corporate guy. I'm a startup guy. I always will be this founder gene in myself. And I like it if I see that at other people and I can give them a little bit and they start running with it. So that makes me getting me goosebumps. That's my life, yes.
Zoe, are you active as an investor, also giving like insights for the founders in the startups you have invested? Are you like having an active role, or is it more passive?
No, it's very active. I think it's very hard, as Florian was saying, to separate your identity from being a founder. Even when you've moved on to become an investor, it's in your DNA, and you can't get away from that. And I find that's what a lot of the founders really appreciate. There's a real lack in London of founder origin and operators in VC. I think it's something like 6 to 8%. It's absolutely shocking. And the fact when you come up and you say that, your 10 years history, the ups and the downs and the things and how you came out of it fine, everybody's like, okay, this person's been through it and came out well. I'm going to listen to a little bit more about what they have to say. And I see it more like if you've got that empathy and that the lows are really, really low, and how to support the founders going through that, then you build that trust. And if as a VC you're in there for 7 to 10 years, I think it's very important to be able to build that. So I'm enjoying this change in my life, this change, in my career, and the things that I can help the founders with. And I think there should be more founder VCs. More for it.
Gyula, you are also investing in early stage startups, so I assume you also have an active role.
Yes, so we're investing in late seed Series A. So constantly, 4 out of 5 days of my time is seeing lots of startups. So yeah.
Perfect. And I also want to hand over to Gyula from Hungary. Are you taking an active role in the early stage startups as an investor?
As an investor, yes. It's not the same though as having an active role as a founder. I was lucky to have my Series A board member as an ex-entrepreneur. he just sold, he was a founder of a company called Sling, and he just did a $350 million exit prior to joining our board. So he was still very sharp and active. And what I found working with him was he had a solution for everything. And sometimes it meant that we had this huge shortcut and we could bypass a lot of obstacles. And other times he took a situation and he applied a past experience to it, even though it was actually not the same thing. And those times were very frustrating because we felt that we're talking about different things here. And I think one analogy we can use to become good investors as ex-founders is sports. You know, the founders are the players on the pitch, but we are no longer on the pitch. We are on the sideline as coaches. And the actual decisions and executions are done by the founders. And even if they screw up, we have no right to second guess them because they are on the pitch. So our job very often is not to provide the answers. Sure, a lot of times I need to provide the answers because they are very tactical. But a lot of times I think my job is to ask the questions and keep asking them until that person can actually figure out the answer for him or herself. And I think that's more of a coaching role rather than an actual execution role.
But it's not just about providing answers, it's also providing a network, because all of you have a really good network for sure. So Florian, I want to ask you, how are you bringing in your personal network, and maybe you can give us some example.
Yeah, it's a good question though, but I'm very often saying it's not about the network. You know, I'm not so somehow I'm being connected, and I think one of the learnings and one of the successes of Runtastic was that we didn't do any networking at the beginning. We just focused on the work. We're getting the product done. And in my opinion, the founders in the first 3 years, there's nothing else but the product. And no networking and not visiting 10 other people and 10 meetups, hanging out, going drinking, coming to work late. So that's absolutely not me. It's, again, a little bit like sports. We have to be on the pitch and we have to build a product. And, you know, the networking part, in my opinion, comes later. If the product works, then it's good if you want to do some B2B, whatever. And we also then tried. My biggest challenge back then was, okay, we need to know somebody from Apple. So I flew there over San Francisco the very first time, had no idea about anything, went to a few meetups, but I came home with my Google and with my Apple business card. And for me, it was like a game changer, yeah. But it really helped us to getting featured then there. And we were seeing a little bit as a US company, which helped us again a lot. Then we hired our GM in the United States. So my takeaway still is, yes, there's a big network. But for all the founders out there, it helps, yes, if you're raising. But again, if you have a good pitch deck, you have a good founder team, you have a good product, and you know how to sell a story, how to pitch, then the network isn't that important, in my opinion. So I'm coming in with the network way later. I'm very often trying to say, no, you are not going to this event, you are not going to that person, because, you know, founders are being sometimes youngish, not that big experience. They're getting input from the left, they're running to the right. They're getting input from the right, they're running to the left. And they should really focus on their product. That's my big takeaway there. And the network part comes later, in my opinion.
That's really clear as well. I also want to ask, like, Zoe, how do you handle this situation with your network? Is it the same like Florian?
With the early stage ones, yes, it's like, you know, keeping them focused and pinning them down to just focus on the one thing is the main thing. For the later stage ones, we raise at Series A and they're going towards Series B. If they haven't built that investor network out, if they're going to launch in the US, then yes, they definitely need to. I'll help them start building those bridges towards the US to those investors that they need to raise a Series B. So yeah, that's when, you know, I come in handy for things like that.
Mm-hmm. And a question that is really big at the moment right now. We are deep in the crisis, in the COVID-19 crisis. We also want to know how your businesses, how are your startups doing right now at the moment in your portfolio? So may I hand over this question to Gyula, and maybe we start with you, and maybe you can provide us with some insights.
Sure. I think tech companies in general are doing better than pretty much all the rest of the economy. As for our own portfolio, our largest investment is in an e-commerce company, which, well, for all the known reasons, has been seeing very solid growth. At the moment, another investment is in software continuous integration, with a lot of companies moving their development to work from home scheme. That's also doing well. I think in our case, the portfolio has been on the better side of the crisis. Wow, we do have a small investment in a company that's targeting runners, actually. Well, the running season is canceled. So people use it for training and running on their own, but it's not the same. So there is a big replanning for that company. But I'm gonna knock this on wood. We're doing much better than the rest of the economy, which unfortunately is not.
Mm-hmm. Are you invested into P2C or P2P startups?
The majority of our investments are on the B2B side.
Mm-hmm. Florian, may I hand over to you? You also have lots of P2C startups in your portfolio. How are you doing with them, and what are the biggest challenges right now you have to face?
Yeah, very similar what Gyula just said. I also being a big believer that tech companies can be the big winner of this crisis, and they will be, in my opinion. I have to say, these early stage investments, so we have done our seed money investments. And so there's now a runway for usually, let's say, 12 months. Here and there, we try to expand the runway to 18 months, but also for 2-3 startups, we did some bridge financing because we believe in the team and what they are doing. And so we just want to get over that point that, let's say, the global crisis, or it's getting better out there. But on the early stage ones, there's no big impact because they have to build their product and getting out there and getting first customers. Sure, we have 1 or 2 which being a little bit more impacted because it's about seasonality. One is a little bit travel and things like that. And of course, there is troubles there. With another one, we just were in the middle of raising a Series A. We would have had 4 potential VC offers already on the table. 2 of them were then skipped immediately because the VC said we have to focus on our existing portfolio and we are not expanding. That was part of the game, became a little bit harder there, but fortunately we made that one. And yeah, and I had a very good call with a very successful entrepreneur who became like, his net worth is above 5 billion. And we had a talk like 4 weeks ago. And what I liked, he founded a company very successful. I'm not dropping the name here, but so he had to lay off in the 2001 financial crisis about 600 people. And he said that was the worst thing he had ever done in his life. But nonetheless, he told me he could grow his market share from 16 to 40% in that really rough time, because he were leaner, he were crystal focused, and some of the competitors didn't survive this whole .com bubble. And that's the biggest takeaway maybe already for existing companies. The only fair thing about this crisis is it's really global and everybody's in this big crisis. And if you as a startup now being smart and can do better than your competition, you could gain market shares even though you can't grow that much. And that's my biggest learning. And that's what I'm telling my startups. We have to make sure we are doing better than our competition is doing in this crisis. And then we are getting out if everything is coming along normal, and then we really can scale the business. So that's my hope and my belief.
I wish you all the best, therefore.
Thank you.
And are you also changing some business models, for example, with your travel startups?
Yes, we have to, of course. So there's a little bit of cost cutting for sure. It was in many companies where we just went over how can we do some cost cutting, and we figured out 10 to 20% without doing a layoff is always possible. Server costs, some tools. Sometimes I think it's also good or a part of the process. And for other startups, of course, there has some layoffs or hiring freeze. It's part of the game. But I think that's for an entrepreneur, again, a lesson learned in your entrepreneurial life. And I think Zoe and Gyula, maybe that was the same for you. But sometimes you have to fire somebody. Sometimes you have to do that. That is part of our journey. And now we have to learn it in the hard way, driven by an external factor. Sometimes you have to do it internally, and that's part of the game.
May I hand over to Zoe? What's the situation in the UK?
Well, we've got investments across Europe. We've got them in Germany, and we've got them in Hungary and the UK. So they're slightly different in each of the countries, but we spent the last 2.5 months making sure that they're all in a decent position. The early stage one, like Florian was saying, they're not so bad because they're focused on the product. So we just keep, with giving them bridges to be able to continue to focus on the product. The ones that are hurting a little bit more are like the Series A going into Series B, so the growth ones. So those ones having to put together some financing to get them through this, because it's obviously going to be slower growth than expected. But then we've got ones like mental health. Okay, it's rocketing at the moment, absolutely storming. But then you have to be wary of the fact that, is this a peak? Is this just the corona peak? Is this going to continue afterwards? And we don't know those things. So I think the aspect that we're most concerned about is what's going to happen in 12 to 18 months times with valuations. Once those bridges are done, once these rounds are being done now, what happens next? I think that's the bit that everyone's trying to struggle to work out what to do and hasn't got answers for yet.
Yeah, we also in Austria, we also have a recovery program for startups. So Florian, maybe you can share also for the international community here for Podim some insights how it works in Austria with these recovery programs, and from your point of view, how you perceive these programs, because we also have a debate going on if they are successful or not.
Yeah, basically there's two programs, one program is for, let's say, startups. They are just they are being allowed to be 5 years old, not older. And then if existing or new investors will put money in, the state and Austria would put the same amount of money in for free, and you have to pay it back in case you are making revenue and you earning some money within the next 10 years. Other than that, if, for example, the startup didn't work out, then you don't have to pay anything. So that's very helpful. If your investors believe in the company, you're putting money in there, you can easily double the money. So that's up to, I think, 800,000 euros. That's a good way. And then there's another one that's called the Runway Fund. It's more for VCs and bigger ones, where even in a very similar model, if VCs are putting extra money into a bigger company already, the state of Austria is adding some money here in kind of similar terms. It's not, the whole details are not clear there yet, but for the first one, that's already out and already working. And of course, it will be reviewed by the Austrian Wirtschaftsservice. Is it good? Is it the best? I don't think so, but for sure, it's a start. It took, unfortunately, a bit longer than we would all have been expected. I tried to support here as well, but again, it helps. Will it change the game? A little bit. And other than that, I think the founders have to find their own way to survive this crisis, yes.
You applied already for some of these programs?
We did for 2 startups. We're in the middle of the process. We didn't get an answer yet, so it's not through yet, but it looks quite promising that we will be successful there.
And Zoe also mentioned the down rounds. It's also a really big topic in the startup community. So Florian, you also perceive like down rounds coming up in the next weeks, months?
Not in my down rounds, I would say later stage, yeah, that could be the case. But in my very early stage startup, there are no down rounds because that wouldn't make any sense. And I think also that's a learning here. If you take money as a startup, it's not all about the valuation. It's not about who is paying me the highest valuation. It should really fit where you are and what is a fair and a good valuation that you can do your next, and you can do convertible loans. There are convertible money. So with bridge financing, what we did once or twice. So there's always ways, but of course you would like to avoid a down round. But if you are later stage, Series A, Series B, Series C, that is something definitely we will see out there. And yeah, I think SoftBank yesterday announced WeWork is now valued at $2.9 billion, back from 47. So that's kind of a down round, yes. There's bigger issues, we all do know that, but yeah, if possible, avoid them.
Thank you very much. Gyula, how is the situation in Hungary? Maybe you can give us some short insight before we come to our last question.
Sure. There is a similar state program for startups who are going through hardships. The conditions are actually very flexible, to put it that way. I think a lot of companies are applying. Unfortunately, I also know of companies who were going out of business regardless of COVID, and now get another lifeline, which probably does not help the natural selection in the market. But I do agree that there is not a whole lot of time for scrutiny and checks and everything, because there are companies who are actually failing now because of COVID, and they deserve some help. As for the down rounds, I do think that valuations will go down, but I don't foresee many down rounds, which I know is contradictory. But the thing is, down rounds stink. VCs do not like down rounds. If you are already on the cap table, you get diluted. You don't like that. If you are the new investor, you dilute the others, and you're the bad cop, and nobody wants to be the bad cop. And if you can pick between a fresh investment at a 5x multiple, let's say, and a company who raised at 10x and can now only raise at 5x, you're going to pick the company who hasn't raised yet. And it's not a down round. It's lower valuation than what it could have been earlier, but it's not a down round per se. And I think those companies who raised at a higher valuation previously will have to go find other means like venture debt, convertibles, bridge rounds, as Florian said. So I think we will see more of those, but not way too many down rounds.
Thank you very much for your insights. Yeah, we have to come to our last question, and I want to come back to the overall question, because you're an investor and you are also founders. You can also give advices to young founders, and the Podim conference has a lot of founders as well in the audience. So we really want to know, also the young founders, what should they take care of if they take investors on board? So maybe you can give us and provide us some advices. Zoe, I may start with you.
Okay, I mean, they always say due diligence on your investors, and they'll put you in touch with some founders. But for me, do the back channel, go to them yourself. Yeah, that's the sneaky bit of advice I would give. Do your own work. Don't just rely on the ones that they give you, and always find the ones where it didn't work out too, and speak to them and see how they treated them afterwards. Because I think you could say that about all relationships, can't you? It's what people do afterwards when it's no longer, money motivated. How they treat you is really important. A view of someone. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Florian, you also maybe you can give us some advices.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more what Zoe just said. I think it's very important also talking to an existing portfolio of an investor. And usually a good investor say, hey, talk to my other guys, talk to my other startups, because that gives you a very good insight. And other than that, I think you just should feel comfortable. It's not just a business relation. It's sometimes also a personal relation you're establishing over the time. And it's way more easy if you know, hey, I like my investor. I give him a call at Saturday at 10 p.m. So that is a little bit how the relation should be. It should not be like a formal, okay, we are meeting once a month from 10 to 11. You can ask me 3 questions. It should be like this natural that you see, okay, they want to help me. They're being maybe my advisor. They're being my coach. for us, later on, a business angel joined, Hansi Hansmann. But back then he was, I think, 63 years old and whatever. And he gave us really a lot of life advice, not just business advice. And I think a very early stage investor is more than just giving you some money and a little bit. There should be a personal relationship. And I would focus on that you say, I like this person, I like this woman, I like this guy. I want to have him or her on board, and I feel comfortable going forward with them and talking a little bit also about our goals. So, and always the founders are on the pitch, like Gyula said in I really like the quote, I already wrote it down, comes on my famous quote list. And yeah, that would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. How you can keep an overview about your early stage startups, Florian, because you have like 25?
Yeah, 25 to 28, depends a little bit what is happening the next couple of weeks. We have a big Excel, a very detailed Excel list with all the details in there. It's a lot of work. You should not underestimate what is going on there. But then we split a little bit up, my co-founders and I, who is doing the lead there and here. And unfortunately, the spreadsheet is supporting us a lot of what is going on in there. Yes.
Yeah. Gyula, maybe we come to you. Maybe you can give us some advices for young founders in the audience.
Honestly, I could not agree more with Zoe and Florian on what they said. My advice would be, avoid narcissistic people and psychopaths. They're gonna screw you the first moment of hardship. And try and select people, do your due diligence, yes, talk to other founders, and try and select people who you feel can help you grow faster as a person and as an entrepreneur, and who will care about your growth, and people who will first want to work with you in times of hardship, rather than come to conclusions without even discussing with you first. So definitely look to work with investors like those.
Many learnings for young founders, but I also want to know your learnings as investors, and then we hand over to the stage in Maribor again. So, Gyula, maybe what was your biggest learning in being an investor?
It's extremely rewarding. As an ex-founder, you need to teach yourself not to want to run to the pitch and try to score yourself. This is not how it works. You need to find your reward in working with someone and then seeing that person succeed with you in the background, in the shades. And you need to learn to enjoy that and take pride in that, as opposed to being in the spotlight. And I think for ex-founders, that's one of the most difficult things in this transition. But it's very good. And let me give you a small story if we still have the time.
We have the time. Just go for it.
One of our portfolio founders in this e-commerce company, he called me one day. I was sipping wine on my nice terrace in late summer. And he calls me from Canada, from the Shopify conference, that Facebook wants a meeting with him now. So he's booking a ticket and flying overnight to Palo Alto, and he needs to prepare slides on the plane, and we'll, go immediately into this meeting with Facebook. And I talk to him, I comfort him, and then I hang up, and I'm still there sipping my wine, and this poor guy is getting on a coach flight and working on slides. And I've been there, I've done it. But to know that he's doing it now and I'm his investor, it's kind of comfortable.
Nice story. Zoe, what was your biggest learning?
It's a long game. You think, you're always running at 100 miles an hour as a founder. And now being on this side, 10 years later, you can see everything that I went through was building towards this, and it's very hard when you're in the moment. So yeah, it's a long game. And my ambition, if anybody's watching the Michael Jordan Netflix thing, I want to be Phil Jackson. So that's the kind of thing that, that's what I want to be as a VC. I want to get the best out of my, founders and be there for them and be that trusted ally. So that's where I'm heading.
And finally, I want to hand over to Florian, what was your biggest learning as an investor?
So I think there's two big learnings. One learning is if it sounds too good to be true, then probably it's really too good to be true and not true. So sometimes, you see the numbers, the forecast, and we all have done that. And fortunately, in our case, we have delivered most of the time. And so I had this experience, really, wow, that's amazing. And exactly that didn't work out. So that was a big learning. Always calm down, slow down, look at the numbers again, go into the details. And that is one learning. And the other learning, quite similar. It's not like, of course, sometimes there's a chance and you have to grab it. So it's limited time and you have to do it. Or let's say FOMO, the fear of missing out. The good startup people, the good entrepreneurs, they create a good FOMO, a good fear of missing out. Oh, we are almost full. Around this time, this guy has announced he want to be there. And what I've seen now, they're getting back to you, and there's other opportunities coming down the road. So a little bit at the beginning, it was like this rush. Oh, here, wow, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Oh, there's another once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Oh, there's a third one. That can't be. So as an investor, connect with your people, connect in your network, and you will get opportunities on the table, but take your time to review them, take the time to get along with the founders, because again, it's a relationship, and we hustled maybe a little bit too much at the beginning, and that were my two learnings.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Lots of learnings for our community, for the Podim community. Thank you very much, Zoe. Thank you very much, Gyula and Florian, for joining here this panel for the founder talks. It was really, really amazing. And also for your insights. I want to give now back to the Maribor studio.